To stay relevant in pop music, reinvention is key. This decade has proven that even the biggest artists cannot rely on the same formula forever. In this video, we'll look at 8 artists that changed their sound in the 2020s. Beyoncé. When Beyoncé entered the 2020s, she was already one of the biggest artists of all time, but she used the new decade as a chance to reinvent herself again. After the deeply personal album Lemonade, which was all over the place when it comes to genres, Beyoncé went in the soundtrack direction, dropping The Lion King, The Gift, and Black is King. These projects leaned into Afrobeats and global rhythms, but they weren't official studio albums. For her next era, she wanted to take a risk. Her 2022 album Renaissance was a reinvention, introducing the world to Beyoncé's take on house and dance music. Drawing from 1980s and 1990s underground club culture, she crafted an album filled with infectious grooves. It showed her willingness to challenge mainstream expectations. Renaissance debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and earned critical acclaim as one of the most beloved albums of that year. Rather than resting on that success, Beyoncé flipped expectations again with Cowboy Carter in 2024. The project leaned into country and Americana, inspired in part by her 2016 TMA Awards backlash, when country fans questioned her place in the genre. Singles like Texas Hold'em shot to #1 on the Hot 100, making her the first black woman to achieve that with a country song. The album was a huge success, even winning her first Album of the Year Grammy. As she is set to complete the trilogy, her next album is supposed to explore another sound, probably rock. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift entered the 2020s looking to transform her sound. Known for reinventing herself, she shocked fans in 2020 coming out of the pandemic by moving away from the glittery synth pop of 1989 and Lover to deliver the surprise albums Folklore and Evermore. Produced with Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff, these albums leaned heavily into indie folk and were both storytelling masterpieces. The low-key songs didn't affect their performance, as this era was critically acclaimed and very successful, even earning her a Grammy for Album of the Year for Folklore. Her risk really paid off. Taylor switched it up again, dropping Midnights in 2022, blending the synth-pop elements of her past with a more bedroom pop vibe. From the album, Anti-Hero became her longest-running #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 8 weeks at the top. The album's success showed her unique ability to reinvent herself while maintaining her dominance at the top of the charts. Taylor Swift has reached a new peak of popularity in this decade, transforming her sound in the 2020s, experimenting with different genres, making her one of the most versatile artists of her generation. Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato has always been known as a versatile artist, but the 2020s truly marked one of the most dramatic changes in her career. After years of commercial ballads like Skyscraper, EDM-influenced hits like Cool for the Summer, Demi entered the new decade with a darker, realer sound. Her 2021 album Dancing with the Devil, The Art of Starting Over leaned heavily into pop, and she talked about her personal battles with addiction and recovery on the album. There was nothing radio-friendly about it. The biggest turning point came in 2022 when Demi shocked fans by pivoting away from mainstream pop towards a full-blown rock and punk aesthetic. With her 2022 album Holy Fuck, she embraced heavy guitar riffs and a rebellious spirit, with a sound reminiscent of her Disney Channel beginnings. But the image was totally different, as it was more dark. The album wasn't really that successful, debuting at #7 on the Billboard 200, selling 33,000 units in its first week, but it was an admirable experiment. Many longtime fans saw this as a full-circle moment, bringing back the raw rock energy. By redefining herself musically in the 2020s, Demi looked like she was making the music she wanted to make, not just songs to make the charts. Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus entered the 2020s as one of pop's most unpredictable shapeshifters. You'll never know what sound she'll be exploring next. Known for her boundary-pushing image, she began the decade with her 2020 album Plastic Hearts, which introduced her fans to a grungy rock-driven sound. Collaborations with icons like Billy Idol and John Jett cemented the album's status as a successful blend of glam rock and modern pop. The album earned critical acclaim and was decently successful, debuting at #2 on the Billboard 200, selling 60,000 units in its first week. A reinvention with Plastic Hearts was expected but refreshing. The album produced hits like Midnight Sky, which further emphasized her rock persona. For many fans, it felt like Miley had found the genre that fit her. But in 2023, she pivoted once again, with Endless Summer Vacation. Unlike the rock vibe of her previous album, the album leaned into 80s pop with disco influences. Its lead single Flowers became one of the biggest hits of the decade, topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 weeks and breaking streaming records. With a more polished and mainstream sound, Endless Summer Vacation was another reinvention in Miley's career. Her ability to move fluidly from the hip-hop infused bangers to country pop on Younger Now to glam rock on Plastic Hearts and back to polished pop with Endless Summer Vacation makes her one of the most dynamic artists of her generation. Tate McRae. When Tate McRae first emerged in the late 2010s, she was trying to become the next Billie Eilish. From her sound to her image, she was almost like a clone. Her first successful single, You Broke Me First, followed that formula and cemented her reputation as a rising star of the bedroom pop era, with the song going on to peak at number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100 and accumulate 1.8 billion Spotify streams to date. Her sound was understated, but that would all change when she got deeper into her career. By the early 2020s, however, Tate began shifting gears. With her debut album I Used to Think I Could Fly in 2022, she leaned into a poppier sound, incorporating heavier bass lines and groovy production. Songs like She's All I Wanna Be introduced more energy into her music, and the video showed off her dancing skills. Then, the real turning point came in 2023 with Think Later, where she embraced a more confident mainstream pop sound influenced by R&B elements. The single Greedy exploded on TikTok, topping the global charts and becoming her biggest hit to date. The song positioned her as a rising pop star. This transition expanded her audience and showcased her versatility as an artist. Her new album, So Close to What, only solidified the direction, completing her transition from indie pop aesthetic to high-energy global pop stardom. Post Malone. Post Malone's career has always been defined by fluidity, but the 2020s have seen him push his sound into new and unexpected directions. His breakthrough hit White Iverson in 2015 introduced him as a genre-bending rapper who was in the melodic trap vein. His first two albums, Stoney and Beer Bongs and Bentleys, established him as one of the biggest stars in rap-adjacent pop, with chart-topping singles like Rockstar and Congratulations. However, as his career progressed, Post began shifting further away from that sound. In the 2020s, he started to show signs of wanting to reinvent himself. His 2022 album 12 Karat Toothache was kind of different, but a letdown compared to the huge albums that followed. The album had a mixed reception, but it showed his growth as an artist. In 2023 and 2024, Post started fully switching up his sound. He went full country when he released his 2024 single I Had Some Help with Morgan Wallen, which topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 weeks. Fans noticed that Post was moving closer to Nashville than the world of trap beat. By 2025, with projects like Austin and F1 Trillion, it became clear that he was officially done with hip-hop and got deeper into country music, redefining the next phase of his career. Just as his momentum was starting to fade, he latched on into the country trend. As he grew up in Texas, he felt at home, and the risk really paid off. Lil Yachty. When Lil Yachty burst onto the scene in 2016 with Lil Boat and singles like One Night in Minnesota, his sound was bright and playful. He had that bubblegum trap aesthetic that made him very popular and scored a lot of hits. He became one of the biggest stars to come out of the SoundCloud rap era, but by the end of the 2010s, his career was starting to fade. The 2020s, however, marked a radical transformation in his artistry. Instead of clinging to his early sound, he began experimenting with new genres and aesthetics. He tapped into the Detroit rap scene, delivering gritty mixtapes that were decently successful. These projects proved that he had more versatility than many initially gave him credit for. Then in 2023, Yachty shocked fans with Let's Start Here, a psychedelic rock-influenced album that was a complete departure from his rap beginnings. Drawing from Pink Floyd, Tame Impala, and other psych rock inspirations, the album was more of an indie and experimental project than a hip-hop album. While it was divisive among his longtime fans, critics widely praised the attempt, calling it Yachty's boldest work to date. It got him new fans that had never heard of his music. By reinventing himself, Lil Yachty got respect across multiple genres. He proved that he wasn't afraid to take risks, and in doing so, he carved out a lane for himself. Machine Gun Kelly. MGK entered the music scene in the early 2010s with an aggressive rap sound that was popularized by artists like Waka Flocka Flame. His mixtapes and early albums, such as Lace Up in 2012, leaned heavily into fast-paced rap flows and hard-hitting beats. He built a loyal underground fan base because of his rowdy, rebellious shows. He then got mainstream recognition for his pop features, but his biggest moment came in 2018 when he got into a feud with Eminem. They traded diss tracks, and MGK became hated by a huge population of the white rapper fan base. At this point, few could have predicted that he would abandon hip-hop almost entirely. The turning point came in 2020 with the release of Tickets to My Downfall, an album that shocked everyone. Produced by Blink-182's Travis Barker, the project saw MGK get into pop-punk, channeling the sounds of early 2000s alternative rock. The gamble paid off, as the album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and was certified platinum, making it the most commercially successful project of his career. He tapped into the pop-punk revival that was going on at the time, while also appealing to nostalgic millennials who grew up with bands like Blink-182 and Green Day. This reinvention wasn't just a musical shift, it was an entire brand transformation. MGK adopted the full aesthetic of a rock star, with his edgy fashion and performances that embraced punk aesthetics, but he got a lot of hate from rock purists. His follow-up album, Mainstream Sellout in 2022, further got into that sound, also debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200. While MGK's pivot earned him commercial success and a new fan base, it also made him hated even more. Regardless of the criticism, it was one of the boldest reinventions of the decade so far. Which artists who changed their sound in the 2020s did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.